First contact protocol. The emergency beacon pierced through subspace like a scream in the void. Mining colony Theta-7, a remote outpost on the edges of Vacrian territory, was under siege. High Arbiter Kelvan of the Galactic Council stood before the assembled representatives, his crystalline form refracting the chamber's ambient light into 1,000 dancing colors. "The situation is dire," he announced, his voice resonating through the translation matrix. "The Crimson Fang Raiders have breached Theta-7's outer defenses. 3,000 civilians are trapped." Senator Thulrock, a massive Brogdon warrior whose species had dominated galactic military affairs for 6 centuries, leaned back in his suspension field. "The raid season has another 2 months remaining. Theta-7 knew the risks of operating in contested space during combat season. They should have hired a proper honor guard." 2 months? A new voice cut through the chamber, crisp and edged with disbelief. "You're saying there are civilians dying right now, and you're discussing seasonal schedules?" All eyes turned to the human delegation. Commander Sarah Chen stood, her slate-gray uniform devoid of the ornate decorations that adorned every other military representative in the chamber. Behind her, 3 other humans remained seated, their expressions unreadable. Kelvin's form flickered with what might have been annoyance. "Commander Chen, you are still acclimating to our customs. Warfare among civilized species follows established protocols. The Crimson Fang have paid the proper tribute to initiate combat season. They have until the winter solstice to conduct raids. Afterward, there will be a cessation period where negotiators will arrange compensation for the dead, and treaties will be signed over expensive dinners." Chen's voice was flat. "I've read the protocols, High Arbiter. With respect, they're insane." The chamber erupted. Senator Thulrock rose to his full 3-meter height, his mane of quills extending in a threat display. "You dare insult thousands of years of civilized combat tradition? Humans have been part of the Galactic Council for barely a decade. You know nothing of honorable warfare." Chen didn't flinch. "You're right. We don't. But we know how to save 3,000 civilians." Kelvin raised a crystalline appendage for silence. "Commander, your species has impressed us with your technological adaptability. Your merchant vessels and colonial initiatives have been most productive. But warfare is a delicate art. The balance of power, the honor codes, the seasonal restrictions. These exist to prevent the total war that consumed the galaxy before the Council's formation." "Total war," Chen repeated slowly. "High Arbiter, with permission, I'd like to share something from human history." Before Kelvin could respond, Chen activated her datapad. A holographic display materialized above the chamber floor, showing a scarred planet, cities in ruins, mushroom clouds frozen in time. "This is Earth, 700 years ago. We call it the Last War. 3 billion dead in 18 months. When it ended, our species made a choice. We studied war, truly studied it, not as a seasonal sport or a test of honor, but as a profession. We built institutions dedicated to understanding every aspect of armed conflict: strategy, logistics, psychology, technology, ethics. We created something the galaxy hasn't seen." "And what is that?" Thulrock rumbled, his tone dripping with skepticism. "A professional military, not warriors seeking glory, not conscripts fulfilling seasonal obligations. Professional soldiers who serve as their life's work." The chamber fell silent. Finally, Kelvin spoke, his voice uncertain. "And you believe this profession would help you save Theta-7? "I don't believe it, I know it. The Terran Defense Force can have a rapid response unit at Theta-7 in 36 hours. We can neutralize the Crimson Fang and secure the civilian population with minimal casualties on all sides." "Impossible," Thulrock scoffed. "The Crimson Fang have 40 vessels and over 8,000 raiders. They hold the orbital high ground. Even if you could match their numbers, which I doubt, a frontal assault during raid season would violate 6 different honor protocols and result in massive casualties." Chen smiled, and there was something in that expression that made several representatives shift uncomfortably. "Senator, we don't plan to match their numbers. We plan to defeat them. And as for honor protocols," she paused, "the Crimson Fang violated the only protocol that matters to humanity when they threaten civilians. We don't recognize their right to raid season. This is madness." Another representative, a flowing aquatic being in a containment suit, rippled with agitation. "You would risk igniting a wider conflict? Breaking the seasonal accords?" "We would risk saving lives," Chen replied simply. That's what soldiers do. Kelvin's form pulsed with what his species used for deep thought. The Council cannot officially sanction a violation of the seasonal accords. However, if a member species chose to act independently in defense of civilians without Council approval, plausible deniability, Chen nodded. We understand, High Arbiter. The TDF will handle this, alone if necessary. You are either remarkably brave or remarkably foolish, Commander, Kelvin said softly. I have not decided which. Check back with me in 48 hours, High Arbiter. I think you'll have your answer. 31 hours later, the TDF carrier doctrine dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Theta 7 system. On the bridge, Commander Chen studied the tactical display with the calm focus of someone reading a morning report. Situation, Lieutenant Park. The intelligence officer manipulated the holographic display, highlighting the raider positions. 43 vessels confirmed, ma'am. They've established a blockade around the colony. Surface teams have breached the main habitat domes. Civilian casualties estimated at 400 and climbing. Rules of engagement? Minimize civilian casualties. Minimize hostile casualties where possible. If they surrender, we accept. If they flee, we let them go. If they fight... Park left the sentence hanging. If they fight, we end the threat, Chen finished. Efficiently. Lieutenant Okafor signaled the fleet. Execute Operation Clean Sweep Phase 1. In the Crimson Fang flagship Glory of Ashes, Raid Master Krell watched the human vessels approach with amusement. 3 ships. The humans had brought 3 ships against his armada. They must be here to negotiate, his second-in-command hissed. Or perhaps they don't understand the seasonal protocols. Krell's mandibles clicked in laughter. Let them come. We'll add their vessels to our trophy collection. It will send a message to the Council. Even their precious new members must respect the old ways. The human ships separated as they approached, moving with a precision that struck Krell as oddly mechanical. No dramatic displays, no challenge declarations broadcast across all channels, no ritual positioning for honor combat. They simply moved into formation. Incoming transmission, his communications officer announced. It's odd, very brief. Play it. Commander Chen's face appeared on the screen, her expression neutral. Crimson Fang vessels, this is Commander Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. You are in violation of Galactic Council Civilian Protection Statute 4A. Release your captives. Withdraw from the colony and submit to detention. You have 5 minutes to comply. This is your only warning. The transmission ended. Krell's amusement faded into confusion, then anger. That's it? No challenge to honorable combat? No declaration of grievances? No ritual insults? He slammed a manipulator appendage against his command throne. These humans insult us by not even following basic combat etiquette. Show them what happens when you disrespect the Crimson Fang. His fleet began to turn, weapons charging. The human vessels didn't react with the expected posturing. Instead, they did something that would be analyzed by military historians for centuries to come. They went to work. The first indication that something was wrong came when 6 of Krell's vessels simply stopped. Their systems went dark, dead in space. Before his communications officer could even report the incident, 3 more ships reported computer failures. What's happening? Krell demanded. Unknown, Raidmaster. It's like something is attacking our systems, but we can't trace the Glory of Ashes shuddered as something impacted its shields. Not a traditional weapon, but a targeted electromagnetic pulse that didn't destroy, but disabled. Krell watched in growing horror as his tactical display lit up with warnings. Human fighters, tiny, swift craft that ignored all traditional combat approaches, swarmed through his fleet like insects, disabling ship after ship with surgical precision. On the doctrine, Lieutenant Park calmly reported, Cyber warfare package is proving effective, Commander. Enemy vessels are experiencing cascading system failures. Fighter wings have disabled 60% of their point defense. Marines are ready for boarding. Operations, I proceed. What happened next would become known among the Galactic Council as the Theta 7 demonstration. While the Crimson Fang fleet struggled to understand what was happening, human Marines equipped with breaching pods launched from precise coordinates simultaneously boarded 17 key vessels. Not to engage in ship-to-ship honor duels, but to seize control of critical systems. The Marines moved through the ships with practiced efficiency, using non-lethal suppression technology where possible, lethal force only when necessary. They weren't there to kill, They were there to win. On the colony surface, another human team dropped from orbit using powered armor that made them look like armored demons. They didn't charge the raider positions in glorious frontal assault. Instead, they used thermal imagery, motion sensors, and tactical coordination to systematically clear each habitat section, prioritizing civilian rescue over enemy engagement. In 47 minutes, it was over. Krell found himself on his knees in his own command center, human Marines in full combat gear surrounding him. One of them, a sergeant with the name tag Rodriguez, removed her helmet and looked at him with what might have been pity. "Raidmaster Krell, you're under arrest for violation of civilian protection statutes. You have the right to council representation during prosecution. Do you understand?" Krell's mind reeled. This wasn't how combat worked. There had been no honor duel, no dramatic speeches, no glorious battle. The humans had simply executed a plan, like mechanics fixing a machine, like surgeons performing an operation. "How?" he whispered. "We had 43 ships, 8,000 raiders. You had 3 vessels." Rodriguez smiled grimly. "We had training, discipline, and doctrine, Raidmaster. You had numbers. In professional warfare, that's not the same thing." Back on the doctrine, Commander Chen watched as the last Crimson Fang vessel was secured. "Casualty report? 17 human injuries, none critical. Enemy casualties, 43 dead, 167 injured. Civilian casualties during our operation, 0. Chen nodded slowly. "Send a full report to the Galactic Council. And Lieutenant, make sure to include our operational timeline, tactics used, and theoretical alternatives they could have employed under seasonal accord restrictions." "Ma'am?" Park looked confused. "They need to understand, Lieutenant, war isn't a game. It's not about honor or glory or seasonal schedules. It's about achieving objectives while minimizing harm. That's what professionals do." She looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere, the Galactic Council was about to receive a very uncomfortable education. The galaxy was about to discover what humans had learned 700 years ago, that the most frightening military force isn't the one seeking glory. It's the one that treats war as a profession. Doctrine in Action, the Galactic Council's emergency session convened 12 hours after the Theta-7 incident. This time the chamber was packed. Representatives from over 60 species crowded into spaces meant for half that number. Everyone wanted to witness what would happen to the humans who had shattered millennia of military tradition. High Arbiter. Kelvin's crystalline form pulsed with barely controlled agitation. "Commander Chen, your actions have created a situation. The seasonal accords are not mere suggestions. They are the foundation of civilized warfare." Sarah Chen stood at the center of the chamber, alone. Her superiors on Earth had offered to send additional support, but she'd declined. This was her operation, her responsibility. "High Arbiter, with respect, 3,000 civilians are alive because we didn't wait for the seasonal accords to permit their rescue. I'll accept any consequences for that decision." Senator Thulrock rose, his massive frame trembling with barely suppressed rage. "Consequences. You humiliated the Crimson Fang. You destroyed 43 vessels without granting them the honor of proper combat. We disabled 43 vessels," Chen interrupted. "Total enemy casualties, 43 dead, 167 injured. Using traditional honor combat, casualty estimates ranged from 8,000 to 12,000 on both sides. Which number honors life more, Senator?" A new voice entered the discussion. Ambassador Shentuk of the Kasari Federation, one of the galaxy's oldest civilizations, spoke from her neural interface pod. "Commander Chen, I think you misunderstand our concern. It's not that you saved lives. It's that you demonstrated a form of warfare we thought had been eliminated from civilized space. Total warfare. Unrestricted combat." "No, Ambassador." Chen's voice hardened. "That's exactly what we didn't do. Total warfare is what destroyed Earth 700 years ago. What you witnessed at Theta-7 was the opposite. It was controlled, professional, limited warfare designed to achieve specific objectives with minimal casualties." "Minimal?" Thulrock scoffed. You invaded their vessels like thieves in the night. No honor challenges, no ritual combat, no unnecessary deaths, Chen finished. Senator, may I ask you a question? How many combat operations have you personally commanded? Thulrak's quills extended in indignation. I have led 17 honor campaigns. My clan's battle standard has been stained with the blood of... How many soldiers under your command have died? The question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. That is not relevant. Warriors. Accept the risk of glorious death in 3,412, Chen said quietly, pulling up data on her pad. Your 17 campaigns resulted in 3,412 fatalities among forces under your command. The Terran Defense Force has conducted 143 operations in the past decade. Our total casualties, 207. The chamber erupted in disbelief. Impossible, someone shouted. Fabricated data, another accused. Chen waited for the noise to subside. It's not fabricated. It's the result of professional military doctrine. We don't send soldiers into combat for glory. We send them to accomplish missions. Every tactical decision is evaluated on effectiveness and casualty prevention. Every operation is planned with multiple contingencies. Every soldier is trained to a standard that would seem obsessive to you. She activated her datapad again. This time the hologram showed human Marines in training. This is standard TDF basic training. It lasts 18 months. After that, specialization training takes another 6 to 12 months. Before a human soldier sees combat, they've spent 2 years learning their profession. They've studied tactics, logistics, weapon systems, first aid, cultural awareness, and rules of engagement. They've simulated combat hundreds of times. They've learned to function as part of a team where every member knows their role perfectly. The hologram shifted, showing a command center during the Theta 7 operation. Officers calmly coordinated multiple elements, their voices professional and precise. This is our command structure during the operation. Every element had clear objectives. Every unit had backup plans. Our cyber warfare team disabled enemy systems to prevent casualties on both sides. Our fighter pilots targeted specific subsystems to disable rather than destroy. Our Marines used non-lethal force whenever possible. This isn't uncontrolled warfare, Council members. This is warfare refined to its most professional form. Ambassador Shentuk's voice carried a note of fear that hadn't been there before. Commander, what you're describing is warfare as in science, an industry. That's terrifying. Is it? Chen challenged. Is it more terrifying than 8,000 people dying for seasonal honor? Is it more terrifying than 3,000 civilians murdered while we debate protocols? I understand your fear, Ambassador, but I'd ask you to consider what you're actually afraid of. Is it professional warfare, or is it the realization that your current system is built on accepting unnecessary death? Kelvin's form had grown dim, a sign of deep contemplation in his species. Commander Chen, I must admit your results are difficult to dispute, but you're asking us to fundamentally reconsider our approach to conflict. The seasonal accords exist because total warfare nearly destroyed galactic civilization. How can we trust that your professional military won't become the very thing we've spent millennia avoiding? Chen took a breath. This was the moment she'd been preparing for. Because we've been there, High Arbiter. We've lived through what you fear. Let me tell you about Earth's last war. The hologram shifted again, showing archived footage that made several council members recoil. Cities burning, orbital bombardments, chemical weapons drifting across continents, mushroom clouds painting the sky. This is what unrestricted warfare looks like. 3 billion dead, our planet nearly uninhabitable, our species on the brink of extinction. When it ended, we had a choice: ban warfare entirely or learn to control it. We chose control. We created institutions to study every aspect of armed conflict. We established rules of engagement that protect civilians. We developed weapons designed to disable rather than kill. We trained soldiers to think, not just fight. We made warfare a profession specifically to prevent it from becoming total war ever again. The hologram showed modern human military academies, hospitals, logistics centers, and peacekeeping operations. Every human soldier learns the history of the last war. It's seared into our collective memory. We know what we're capable of at our worst. That knowledge doesn't make us dangerous, Council members. It makes us careful. It makes us professional. She paused, letting the images speak for themselves. The difference between what we do and what you fear is simple. Total warfare treats the enemy as an abstraction to be destroyed. Professional warfare treats the enemy as human, or in this galaxy, as sentient beings deserving of life. We don't fight to kill. We fight to win. There's a critical difference. Ambassador Shentuk was silent for a long moment. You're asking us to trust that you'll continue to show this restraint, that you won't use your superior tactics to dominate the galaxy. We're still here asking for your cooperation, rather than demanding your surrender. That should tell you everything you need to know about human intentions. Senator Thulrock had been unusually quiet. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost its aggressive edge. You said every soldier learns your history? Why? Because those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it, Chen replied. Every TDF officer studies Earth's last war. We study the mistakes, the escalations, the moments when cooler heads could have prevailed. We study it so we never forget the cost of losing control. And if you face an enemy who doesn't share your restraint? Thulrock pressed. What then? Chen's expression hardened. Then we defeat them decisively, with minimal casualties on both sides, and we try to teach them a better way. The Crimson Fang learned that lesson at Theta 7. They're alive to learn it specifically because we chose restraint over annihilation. Kelvin's form suddenly brightened. You're not asking permission to use your methods, are you? You're offering to teach them. We're offering to share what we've learned, Chen confirmed. The Terran Defense Force has training programs, tactical manuals, and strategic frameworks we'd be happy to share with any council member interested in reducing combat casualties while maintaining defensive capabilities. We're not seeking to create a human-dominated galaxy. We're seeking to create a galaxy where warfare, when absolutely necessary, is conducted professionally rather than seasonally. The chamber erupted again, but this time the tone was different. Debate rather than outrage, consideration rather than dismissal. One representative, a young Talvani diplomat named Iris, raised a tentacled appendage. Commander Chen, a question if I may. Your emphasis on minimal casualties, does this not make your soldiers hesitant? Afraid to engage when necessary? Chen smiled. Excellent question, Representative Iris. The answer is no, and here's why. Our soldiers are trained to be decisive, not hesitant. They know when force is necessary and they apply it without hesitation. But they also know that unnecessary force is unprofessional. A surgeon doesn't hesitate to cut, but she only cuts where necessary. Our soldiers operate the same way. At Theta 7, our cyber warfare team didn't hesitate to disable the Crimson Fang systems. Our Marines didn't hesitate to board their vessels. Our pilots didn't hesitate to neutralize their weapons. They executed their missions with speed and precision. The difference is that we defined the mission as neutralize the threat and secure civilians, not kill all enemies. The first requires professional discipline. The second just requires aggression. Thulrock stood again, but this time there was something different in his posture. Curiosity, perhaps, or respect. Commander Chen, I have spent 6 centuries believing that warrior spirit and honor in combat were the highest military virtues. You're telling me I've been wrong. Not wrong, Senator. Incomplete. Honor and courage are crucial, but they're not enough. A professional soldier needs honor, courage, training, discipline, strategic thinking, and a clear ethical framework. It's not about replacing warrior spirit. It's about channeling it through professional standards. You said you'd share your training methods. Would you be willing to explain them to a traditional warrior, to show me what I might be missing? Chen's smile was genuine this time. Senator Thulrock, the TDF would be honored to host you at our war college. I think you'd find that professional soldiers have more in common with traditional warriors than you might expect. We just focus that warrior spirit differently. High Arbiter Kelvin's form pulsed with what might have been approval. This session is adjourned pending further analysis of the Theta 7 operation. Commander Chen, you and your team are confined to council space pending that analysis. Consider it protective custody rather than arrest. Understood. High Arbiter. As the representatives filed out, many paused to speak with Chen. Some expressed skepticism, others curiosity, But the universal theme was undeniable. The galaxy would never look at warfare the same way again. Chen stood alone in the emptying chamber, knowing that the easy part was over. They demonstrated professional warfare. Now came the hard part, teaching it to a galaxy that had forgotten what it meant to study war as a science rather than practice it as a ritual. Her communicator chimed. Lieutenant Park's voice was urgent. "Commander, we have a situation. The Helix Dominion just declared raid season against the Terran colonial cluster. They have 300 vessels inbound. They're calling it a test of the human professional military doctrine. They want to see if it works against a real military power." Chen closed her eyes for just a moment, then straightened her uniform. "Tell the fleet to prepare for deployment. And Lieutenant, make sure every camera in the galaxy is watching. It's time for our second demonstration." The galaxy wanted to see what a professional army could do. They were about to find out. Paradigm shift: the Helix Dominion had ruled the outer spiral arm for 2,000 years. Their military tradition was legendary, their battle fleets the most powerful in known space. When Overlord Carthan declared raid season against humanity's colonial cluster, the galaxy watched with morbid fascination. 300 Dominion warships against humanity's 7 colonies and maybe 24 defensive vessels. The betting pools across Council space overwhelmingly favored the Dominion. After all, Theta 7 had been a minor pirate raid. This was real warfare. Commander Sarah Chen stood in the war room aboard the TDF command station Bastion, watching the tactical display with the same calm expression she'd worn during every briefing, every operation, every crisis. Around her, the command staff worked with practiced efficiency. "Enemy fleet composition?" she asked. Captain James Morrison, her tactical officer, manipulated the holographic display. 300 vessels as reported. Breakdown: 50 dreadnoughts, 100 cruisers, 150 corvettes. All following standard Dominion line formation. They're not hiding their approach. In fact, they're broadcasting their fleet composition on open channels. Traditional honor challenge protocols. Expected arrival at the colonial cluster? 48 hours at current speed. Chen nodded slowly. They're giving us time to prepare. That's considerate. It's also a mistake. Lieutenant Park looked up from her intelligence station. "Ma'am, we're getting communications from every major galactic news network. They want embedded journalists for the battle. Grant the requests. All of them. I want everyone to see this." Morrison raised an eyebrow. "Commander, that's unprecedented. Most militaries don't want observers during active combat." "Most militaries fight for glory and honor, Captain. We fight for objectives. And one of our objectives today is education." She turned to face her command staff. "Listen up, people. This isn't just a defensive operation. This is a demonstration. The galaxy thinks the Theta 7 operation was a fluke, or that it only worked because we faced pirates. The Dominion is giving us the opportunity to show them what professional military doctrine looks like against a peer adversary." "With respect, ma'am," Morrison said carefully, "the Dominion isn't a peer adversary. They have 300 ships. We have 23, Chen's smile was sharp. They have 300 ships. We have a strategy. Let's get to work." 48 hours later, Overlord Carr then observed the human colonial cluster from his flagship, Eternal Glory. His tactical display showed the pathetically small human defense fleet arrayed in orbit. Around their primary colony world, 23 vessels. His fleet commander scoffed. They didn't even try to retreat or seek reinforcement. Is this the professional military doctrine the galaxy fears? Carthan was less certain. He'd watched the Theta 7 footage dozens of times. The humans had moved with a precision that troubled him, like watching a machine operate rather than warriors fighting. But the Crimson Fang were pirates, undisciplined and poorly trained, surely against the Dominion's military might. "Incoming transmission from the humans," his communications officer announced. Commander Chen's face appeared on the screen. Behind her, Carthan could see human officers working calmly at their stations. No battle frenzy. No war chants. Just quiet professionalism. Overlord Carthan. "I'm Commander Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. Your fleet is in violation of Terran colonial space. You have one opportunity to withdraw peacefully." Carthan's mandibles clicked in what his species used for laughter. "Commander, your 23 ships face 300 of the finest warships in the galaxy. You would demand we withdraw? Where is your warrior's pride? Overlord, pride doesn't win battles. Preparation does. I'm giving you this warning because the Terran Defense Force values life, including the lives of your crew. Please reconsider. We have declared honorable raid season. We will test your vaunted professional military doctrine. Prepare yourself, Commander. Glory awaits. The transmission ended. Chen turned to her staff. Well, we tried. Captain Morrison, execute Operation Chessboard. Yes, ma'am. All units implement chessboard protocols. Time to show them how the game is really played. The Battle of the Colonial Cluster, as it would later be known, lasted 6 hours and 12 minutes. Galactic historians would study it for centuries, using it as the definitive example of professional military doctrine against traditional warfare. It began with the Dominion fleet advancing in their traditional line formation, a display of force meant to intimidate. Beautiful in its precision, the 300 ships moved as one, their weapons charging in synchronized display. The human fleet didn't retreat. They simply undisappeared. Where did they go? Carthan demanded as his tactical display showed the human vessels vanishing from sensors. Unknown, Overlord. They're using some kind of advanced stealth. No, wait. They're breaking apart. Each vessel is deploying what looks like hundreds of smaller craft. What the Dominion was seeing was humanity's approach to space combat. Not massive ship-to-ship battles, but distributed warfare. Each TDF vessel was actually a carrier for dozens of autonomous drones, manned fighters, and specialized attack craft. Instead of 23 targets, the Dominion suddenly faced over 2,000. But that was just the beginning. The human colonial worlds, which the Dominion had dismissed as defenseless targets, lit up with defensive installations. Orbital platforms, surface-to-space missile batteries, electromagnetic pulse generators, and cyber warfare hubs. The colonies weren't targets. They were fortresses. Overlord were detecting massive power signatures from the planet's surfaces. They're activating. The Eternal Glory shuddered as something slammed into its shields. Not a missile or energy weapon, but a targeted gravitational pulse that disrupted their formation. All across the Dominion fleet, ships struggled to maintain position as the humans weaponized physics itself. Then came the drones. Unlike traditional fighters piloted by glory-seeking warriors, human combat drones didn't care about honor or survival. They executed their programming with ruthless efficiency, targeting specific systems on Dominion vessels. Engines, shield generators, communication arrays. They didn't try to destroy ships, they tried to disable them. We're under cyber attack, the communications officer shouted. They're attempting to infiltrate our command network. Impossible. Our systems are... The tactical display flickered and died, then rebooted with half its functionality gone. Carthan watched in growing horror as his magnificent fleet, the pride of the Dominion, fell apart under an assault that didn't follow any traditional combat doctrine. The humans weren't engaging in glorious ship-to-ship combat. They were dissecting his fleet like a surgeon removing tumors. Manned human fighters swept through the chaos with inhuman precision, their movements coordinated by AI systems that treated combat as a complex mathematical problem to be solved. They didn't dogfight. They executed strike patterns designed by supercomputers and refined through 10,000 simulations. 3 hours into the battle, Carthan had lost 50 vessels, not destroyed, but disabled and drifting. Another 100 were operating at reduced capacity, and he still hadn't landed a significant blow on any human position. Overlord, his fleet commander appeared on his screen. The warrior's usual confidence shattered. Our line formation is useless against their distributed attacks. Our weapons are designed for ship-to-ship combat, not swarm interception. We need to adapt our... I know! Carthan snarled. Reform the fleet. Defensive sphere formation. Focus fire on... But the humans had already predicted that move. As the Dominion fleet tried to reform, human forces opened corridors in their attack patterns, allowing certain Dominion ships to group together. It seemed like a tactical error until Carthan realized those grouped ships were now perfect targets for the colony's heavy orbital cannons. The humans weren't just fighting. They were herding, controlling the battlefield like a game board, moving their opponents into positions of weakness. 6 hours into the battle, Carthan's proud fleet was shattered. Not destroyed. The humans had clearly held back from mass casualties but utterly defeated. Over 200 of his ships were disabled or operating at minimal capacity. His casualties were remarkably light, just over 3,000 dead from a fleet of 200,000 crew. But the psychological impact was total. His communication system crackled. Commander Chen's face appeared, and Carr then noticed she looked exactly as composed as she had before the battle. Overlord Carr then, your fleet is defeated. Under the Articles of Professional Warfare, I'm offering you terms of surrender. Your ships will be repaired and returned to Dominion space. Your crews will be repatriated with full honor. This battle is over. Carthen's mandibles trembled. You could have destroyed us. Your weapons, your tactics. Why didn't you? Because destroying you wasn't the objective, Overlord. Defending the colonies was. We accomplished our mission. Why would we kill your people unnecessarily? This isn't warfare. This is... I don't know what this is. Chen's expression softened slightly. It's professional warfare, Overlord. It's what happens when you treat combat as a science rather than an art. When you value mission accomplishment over glory. When you train for effectiveness rather than honor. You humiliated us. No, sir. We defeated you. There's a difference. Your warriors fought bravely, but bravery without strategy is just sacrifice. Your fleet followed traditional doctrine. Traditional doctrine is obsolete. The aftermath of the Battle of the Colonial Cluster sent shockwaves through galactic civilization. 2 weeks later, Commander Chen stood before the Galactic Council once again. This time the chamber was silent, attentive, fearful. High Arbiter Kelvin spoke, his crystalline form dim with contemplation. Commander Chen, the galaxy has witnessed something unprecedented. The Helix Dominion, undefeated in 2,000 years, was neutralized by a force a fraction of its size. You have proved your point, perhaps too well. With respect, High Arbiter, I don't think we proved our point well enough. Yes, we defeated the Dominion. But look at the casualty figures. 3,000 Dominion dead, 78 human casualties. Compare that to a traditional engagement of that scale, which would have resulted in 50,000 to 100,000 deaths on both sides. Professional warfare isn't just more effective, it's more humane. Ambassador Shentuk leaned forward in her neural pod. Commander, you've demonstrated superior tactics, but you're asking us to fundamentally restructure our entire approach to conflict. The social implications alone are staggering. Warrior cultures would need to become soldier cultures. Honor traditions would need to adapt to professional standards. This isn't just a military revolution, it's a cultural one. I understand, Ambassador, but the alternative is watching more sentience die unnecessarily, because we're too attached to traditions that don't serve us anymore. The TDF isn't asking you to abandon your cultures or your values. We're asking you to channel them through professional standards. Senator Thulrock stood and every eye turned to him. The great warrior had been silent since the battle's conclusion. I attended Commander Chen's War College as promised, he said, his voice carrying none of its former aggression. I observed their training. I studied their doctrine. I spoke with their soldiers. And I must admit something difficult for a warrior of my standing. He paused, his quills settling in what his species used to indicate solemn respect. I learned more about effective warfare in 2 weeks with the humans than I did in 600 years of honor combat. They do not fight for glory. They fight to win. They do not seek to kill. They seek to accomplish their mission. They do not value courage over intelligence. They value both equally as components of a professional approach. Are you saying we should adopt human military doctrine? Another representative asked. I'm saying we should at least learn from it, Thulrock replied. My clan has shed blood for glory for millennia. We thought that was honor. But what honor is there in unnecessary death? What glory and victory achieved through waste rather than wisdom? Overlord Carthen, present via holographic projection as part of the surrender terms, spoke up. The humans offered to help repair our fleet. They offered medical care to our wounded. They offered to share tactical knowledge with us. They defeated us, then treated us as allies rather than conquered enemies. That is not the behavior of a species seeking dominance. That is the behavior of teachers. Chen remained standing, waiting. This was the moment. Either the galaxy would embrace change or it would reject it out of fear. High Arbiter Kelvin's form pulsed with what might have been decision. Commander Chen, the Galactic Council formally requests that the Terran Defense Force establish a military academy open to all member species. We request that you share your tactical manuals, your strategic frameworks, and your training methodologies. We request that you help us transition from traditional warfare to professional warfare. The TDF accepts, High Arbiter, but I want to be clear about something. Professional warfare isn't a human invention. It's a human rediscovery. We learned it through terrible cost. We're sharing it because we don't want anyone else to pay that price. We also request, Kelvin continued, that the Terran Defense Force take a leading role in Council military operations, not as conquerors or overlords, but as coordinators, as professionals who can integrate different species' capabilities into effective combined operations. Chen took a breath. High Arbiter, we accept that responsibility, but we do so with one condition: that every species involved commits to the fundamental principle of professional warfare, mission accomplishment, with minimal casualties on all sides. We will not lead forces that prioritize glory over effectiveness, honor over life, or tradition over victory. Agreed, Kelvin said, and his form brightened with what his species used for relief. The galaxy is entering a new era, Commander Chen, the age of professional warfare. I pray we are ready for it. You will be, High Arbiter, because that's what professional militaries do. They prepare. 1 month later, Commander Sarah Chen stood on a balcony overlooking the new Galactic War College, watching as the first class of multi-species cadets assembled for training. Brogdon warriors stood beside Kasari tacticians. Talvani pilots mixed with Dominion strategists, and everywhere, human instructors prepared to share 700 years of painful lessons. Lieutenant Park joined her, 2 cups of coffee in hand. Think this will work, ma'am? Chen accepted the coffee and smiled. You know what the greatest weapon humanity brought to the galaxy was, Lieutenant? Superior tactics. No, the willingness to share them. We didn't conquer the galaxy. We educated it. That's more powerful than any weapon system we could develop. The Dominion's already implementing combined arms doctrine. The Brogdon clans are establishing professional military academies. Even the Crimson Fang pirates are reforming as a defensive militia. The galaxy's changing fast. Good, Chen said softly, because the galaxy's a dangerous place. Professional militaries don't eliminate war, but they make war less deadly, more controlled, more purposeful. That's the best we can do. Do you think traditional warrior cultures will survive the transition? Chen watched a Brogdon cadet helping a Kasari trainee with powered armor calibration. I think they'll evolve. The best parts, courage, loyalty, honor, will remain, but they'll be channeled through professional standards. In a few generations, the galaxy will wonder why we ever did things differently. And humanity's role in all this? We'll be teachers, guardians, and hopefully one day we'll work ourselves out of a job. The day every species can field a professional military without our help is the day we'll know we succeeded. Park raised her coffee cup. To the Iron Doctrine, then. To professional warfare. Chen clinked her cup against Park's. To professional warfare. May it make war itself obsolete. Below them, drill instructors from a dozen species called their cadets to attention. The first unified professional military in galactic history was taking shape. Not built on conquest, but on education. Not forged in domination, but in cooperation. Humanity had discovered what a professional army truly was 700 years ago, in the ashes of near extinction. Now the galaxy was learning that lesson without the catastrophe, and that, Commander Sarah Chen reflected, was the greatest victory humanity could achieve, not winning wars, but teaching others how to end them. Epilogue from the Transition. How Humanity Revolutionized Galactic Warfare, by historian Chalrek of the Kasari Federation. Published 150 years after the Battle of the Colonial Cluster, the introduction of professional military doctrine to the Galactic Council was not without opposition. Traditionalists argued that it destroyed the honor and glory of warfare. Conservatives claimed it would lead to total war. Skeptics insisted it was a human trick to achieve dominance. They were all wrong. What humanity brought to the galaxy was not a new way to kill, but a new way to think about conflict. Professional warfare reduced combat casualties by 87% in the first decade alone. It introduced concepts of proportionality, civilian protection, and mission-focused operations that had been lost to galactic civilization. Most importantly, it proved that the most dangerous military force is not the one that seeks to destroy enemies, but the one that seeks to accomplish objectives while preserving life. Today, every Galactic Council military academy teaches from the human playbook. Every officer studies the Battle of the Colonial Cluster. Every cadet learns the lessons of Earth's last war. Not because humans forced us to, but because we finally understood what they had learned through terrible cost. That war is too important to be left to warriors. It must be entrusted to professionals. Beganter.